as I think it was Mark Twain that said, education isn't about learning things; it's about unlearning things. It's pretty deep, right? Because like we go to school as we're conventionally taught to try to accumulate knowledge and like see it like kind of this progression of adding things into our knowledge base. But I feel like that's a very poor definition as we look forward to the future because the best innovators and creators in today's society are the ones that are looking for the gaps in between, which require dissembling what's there and seeing what could be there and then rebuilding, right?
How did you end up in Thailand? Can you just tell me the story of your
Sure.
journey to getting here?
Yeah, so before Thailand, I was living in Shenzhen, China, which is the border of Hong Kong. Shenzhen's considered the Silicon Valley of hardware for China. It's like a very techy place where a lot of the technology and gadgets are coming out of. So I was living in Nanshan district, which is really almost like the heart inside of this megatropolis. And I was doing crowdfund consulting and marketing consulting for Chinese technology companies that wanted to have a bridge to get their products into the Western market. I've developed a lot of different skill sets over the years, and spoke fluent Chinese, and so I was able to really work with these companies to get their products into the Western market. But I came to a point after my second year in that I just started to feel kind of burned out. And I had been to Thailand multiple times on vacation, mostly in the south, in Phuket, Pattaya, some of the islands, right? And it was fun. But I had a friend at the time moved to Chiang Mai, and they told me how great it was, surrounded by mountains and temples, and great place to live. And I had to take an exit for my visa at the time. So flew out to Chiang Mai, stayed 2 weeks, and I just loved it. And at the time, I remember thinking to myself, like, what would it look like if I were to live here full time? Instead of living in China full time and vacationing in Thailand, like doing the exact opposite, because I found that the city was, so friendly and very open to digital nomads and entrepreneurs that want to make this their home base. Cost of living was a lot lower than Shenzhen. I think at the time I was living in a small apartment, sharing with a couple close buddies. For a small room, it was about 800 USD. And when I moved to Chiang Mai, set up in a nice studio, it was, I don't know, it was like a little over 200 USD. So having the extra cash flow at the time was great. But apart from expenditures, just the overall vibe of the city was what kept me here, I guess you could say. And yeah, I've been here since like 3.5 years.
Okay. So you mentioned digital nomad. So do you consider yourself to be a digital nomad? And if so, why?
Uh, yeah, so I think I would consider myself a digital nomad. There's probably a lot of definitions of what that is, what it means. Uh, for me, it's someone that uses the internet in a way to monetize and be able to do whatever they want to do remotely. So independent of location. Whether I want to be here to run my business or be in Bali or wherever, I can do it as a digital nomad. But it doesn't necessarily mean that I'm nomadic. As I mentioned, I'm based here for over 3.5 years. This is my home base, and I don't travel a whole lot. So yeah, why I wanted to be a digital nomad. I never really came at it with an aspiration to uh, become a nomad. More so, I just wanted the freedom to do what I love to do, right? So when I worked for other people, I've only worked for a couple other companies under a company instead of like a consulting relationship. I found I'd quickly get frustrated or bored, and some of the creative ideas that I want to implement, there would be upper management or some sort of bureaucratics that would happen that would stifle or kind of frustrate me. So being able to do my own thing allowed me the freedom to, you could say, express my creativity and move at the speed that I wanted to move, and not be kind of burdened by a lot of the bureaucratic BS that happens in larger organizations and corporations. And it's been good, I prefer to keep it this way. I've been offered jobs in larger companies and I've turned it down. And there's something about even the kind of the creative spirit of being, I would say more entrepreneur, of being able to kind of define the direction you want to go and how you want to create your business and your future. And I prefer, there's a funny saying, as someone, I don't know if it was a podcast I heard or something, they said that an entrepreneur is a person that chooses to work 80 hours a week instead of 40, right? And that's often how it is. Like there's usually this grandiose idea of becoming an entrepreneur. You're just going to be, throwing stacks of cash this way and that, and life is great. But it's really not. Some of the most miserable experiences I've been in is because I chose to run my own business, and some really complicated things, of things you wouldn't expect, right? But through that, I've learned some skills, and of course added that to my tool belt of knowledge and experience. So in the future, I can kind of adapt and be more resourceful. So yeah.
So often, many digital nomads mention freedom, and it seems like that's a theme that kind of runs through digital nomad communities. Do you think that there are some key features or key aspects of a digital nomad culture? I mean, how do you see a digital nomad culture? Is there such a thing? If so, what are some of the key elements, threads that you often see in your community?
Good question. I think there's a lot of layers to that. What I would say is, as far as this word freedom, I think that is a very human thing. Like when you dig down, what is it that we crave as humans? There's this little bit of a paradox probably at play, where there's a desire for safety, right? Where we want to know that we're safe and kind of like nothing bad's going to happen. But on the other side of that, there's this craving to explore, right, and for adventure, and the ability to be autonomous, like be able to kind of govern ourselves, whether it's the choice of making decisions where you don't feel like you're, forced into doing it in a certain way. And I think entrepreneurship, or really freedom, in the nomad community is just an expression of kind of this bigger human condition that I think everybody at their heart really desires.
So how does, should I say you, or just how is community built usually with kind of expats and digital nomads? Because people are coming from all over. So I mean, how does one determine, who to build community with?
Yeah. I think communities, they start with a common value or common connection, normal similarities of whatever domain. I definitely think that commonality starts the community, and then it's kind of its own culture, and it can grow. Most people point to the Chinese as being like infamous around Chinatowns and like sticking together, and whatever country they go into, there's a specific area where the Chinese kind of like domesticate and like stay, right? But I think even for me, when I was abroad, was in China, and being out here, there's this sense of like when you see another foreigner, there's almost like this little head nod, or kind of like a subtle like recognition that they see you, you see them, because it's like we have this connection that we've both left our home countries, traveled thousands of miles, and we're here in this foreign culture, but we have this common connection, right? And it goes even deeper than that. Like if I find out, whoa, you're American, whoa, no way, I'm American too, so we hit it off, right? But apart from citizenship or whatnot, I think with nomads, it goes even deeper because there's more common values, right? Not like outward connections, but like inward philosophies or mindsets that align. Because like when I went back to the U.S. to visit family and care for some business for about 8 months, I felt so much reverse culture shock, like leaving my environment here overseas. And I was situated I spent some time in Idaho, where I grew up, and also in San Antonio, Texas, and between San Antonio and Austin, Texas, where I have like my mom's side of the family. And the culture shock came from once of just being reintroduced to a lot of the elements around American society. But a big part of it was I just had a hard time connecting with people, right? Because people didn't really understand me that well as far as like running my business online and kind of doing my own little thing. But I found that people weren't as relatable to me because I'm a maker. I like to create things. I like to see something. I want to do it, right? And I found the overall temperament of most people in the U.S., at least in that area, were quite passive. Like they want to talk about sports or politics, maybe complain about something, but there's no real intent to fix it, And so that was very discouraging to me. And as soon as I came back to Thailand, it was almost like, coming up out of water and being able to breathe again. It was really, really refreshing. So as far as that commonality between nomads, I think it's there as well, because we don't necessarily have to be in the same industry even. Just knowing that like you're running your own business and you're taking kind of the risk and the adventure of doing this personal enterprise like that's respectable, and that's enough for us for me to like want to know you more and understand like I feel like the roads can cross both ways.
Are you able to build strong ties through digital nomad communities in terms of people who are good business partners to a best friend or a close friend?
Yeah, so I think two parts. There's the side of, again, like I mentioned, kind of the common alignment around maybe worldviews and even approaches towards business, that the shared value there, so it creates the possibility of creating those deeper relationships. But being in Chiang Mai as well, we do have a lot of traveling nomads, right? So I may meet a friend and find start a friendship, but within a month they're traveling, like they're on the circuit to go down to Costa Rica, and then they're going to Europe, and so it's harder to have closer friendships without the interpersonal face time that we'll have by being kind of rooted in a community. So I find that a lot of the entrepreneurs or nomads in Chiang Mai also experience this, where their circles are pretty tight because they've kind of found the people that are grounded or kind of located here permanently, and they build those relationships, and then others that kind of come in and go are nice to have in the network, but not necessarily their closest friends.
So tell us a little bit about your work and your profession, because I know that a lot of people, when they think of digital nomads and expats, the first thing they think about is, so how do they make a living? So what's kind of been your professional and career journey?
Sure. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of ways to make money, right? Which is at the end how everyone can support themselves to do what they want to do. For me, my road started in China when a friend of mine, he took a pair of wooden watches to Kickstarter called Original Grain, OG watches, and within a month, Ryan and his brother, co-founder of the product, they raised about 400,000 USD. And Ryan was a close friend. We were in the American kind of network of expats and played basketball and stuff together. And so I was able to kind of reach out to him and hear more about how he did it and what it looked like. And it was quite straightforward. It was almost like an off-the-shelf product that they rebranded and created a very good marketing story around. With my background in graphic design and understanding of marketing and like kind of consumer psychology, I decided to jump in there as well. Additionally, I knew Chinese, and I had friends that had really integrated much better than some of the American expats at the time. where I had Chinese friends that had factories. The first partner that I worked with, Daniel, had a steel injection mold factory, and the second partner had an industrial design company with about 10 staff. So the three of us partnered together to create this design studio we called Newbie. Newbie, like a little bee buzzing around. It's Chinese lingo for kick-ass. So we thought it was a fun thing. So we started up this company, and the first project that I put onto Kickstarter were these men's fashion slider belts called Timberline slider belts. And so they had like this innovative belt buckle that could slide up and down and lock down on the belt at any given point. And I kind of oversaw both selecting the product and putting together marketing and everything, and then managing the campaign. So we put it out, and it did extremely well. Like within the first day, we hit our goal of about 15,000 USD, and over the month, we collectively raised over 120,000 USD. And it shocked me, shocked the partners, and we're like, damn, we've got something here. Let's do more. So I did a couple projects with these guys, and then I broke off and I worked with a larger factory doing the same thing. In China, there's a lot of factories that are craving creative products because they're all copying each other and trying to one-up each other, and it normally comes down to lowering the price, which goes to lowering the quality, and it affects the market. So my skill sets were in high demand because I kind of understood the American, U.S. market, Western market, understood good design, good branding, good marketing, and then product selection, knowing what products would work, how it should be positioned and sold, and So basically, my way of making money was through developing products, original product design, and consulting, helping other companies that wanted to design a product do the same thing, which when people think design, there's a lot of different sides to it, but like you have the physical product, which is how it should be molded and shaped and what materials should be used, how to understand the cost behind it and the manufacturing feasibility. But there's the other side of like understanding, of course, the end user, the customer, like what do they find is valuable, how will they use it, like what makes sense to them, and then how to brand that, right? So I learned a lot because crowdfunding, it's almost like this microcosm of what happens to a product in the full lifespan, right? It's a lot of work, but it's still one of the best ways, I think, to launch original products to the market with as low risk as possible.
So do you consider yourself a product designer?
Yes,
okay.
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so how did you develop the skill sets? So if you don't mind, just go back and tell us a little bit about your learning and educational journey. I mean, you started off in the United States.
Yep. Yeah, I've had I could say an evolution, because if you would have gone back 15 years to talk to me and said, look, you're going to be a product developer living overseas, I probably would have shrugged it off. I wouldn't have even thought that to be possible, because I didn't have any intentions of going that route, right? I knew I was creative. I've always kind of been praised as a kid from coming up with funny ideas or creative ideas. When I got into graphic design in high school, I was taught by a teacher that was very gifted. Like he was incredibly funny, and he made the classes so much fun that you were learning things without even realizing you're learning, because you're engaging with the teacher. And so I learned all of the Adobe Creative Suite really well, from Photoshop to Illustrator, InDesign and everything. And then I applied those skills outside of the classroom. I bought a MacBook computer and I was learning. So I got really good at graphic design. And then of course your world turns into this this whole canvas of looking and evaluating what is good design, what is good copy, what is good branding. And so from a young age I kind of started cultivating that. And then I got into university and I realized I didn't want to pursue graphic design as my main career, right? It was too much face time in front of a computer. I felt kind of like a zombie and sluggish. I'm a social guy as well, so I pivoted and went into a communications major, transferred to another university in Portland, Oregon, and then that really led me down a new trail of valuing education in a new way, because I wasn't sure what I wanted to do at that point. I realized I didn't want to be a graphic designer, and I'm kind of in this environment where it was very conservative, very Christian, religious, and but there was a love of learning and a love of knowledge, and a lot of these professors I highly respected because I could see that they devoted their entire lives to trying to seek out knowledge and truth, right? And after diving in and kind of like learning as much as I could about Bible and theology and everything, I realized like that wasn't for me. Philosophically, there were a lot of things about it that I didn't approve of and didn't resonate with. But I came to respect the learning process from one of the professors in particular, a guy named Nathan Baxter, that kind of like took me under his wing. And he was the communications theory professor, and I took as many classes as I could from him. And he kind of instilled in me the love of learning, right, and being a self-learner. And so I spent a lot of time in the library just digging through books of whatever kind of was curious to me. So I got into poetry, right? I didn't expect that. I'm starting to read Robert Frost and Mary Oliver and some of these different poets. And that, in some odd way, led me into kind of music. So I was listening to different artists in the music industry, and then meeting people that were having their different like life episodes and kind of trying to tie it all together and make sense of it. And I just was so curious, right? Trying to understand, like, I think more of the meta picture of like who I am and where do I belong in the world and which direction should I be going. So anyway, I got a bit burned out from the Christian school, and I ended up transferring down to a state school in Idaho, Lewiston, Idaho, Lewis Clark State College, and I finished out my undergrad degree there. And to be honest, I wouldn't have survived university without Lewis Clark State College. One option they had was this independent learning curriculum, where as a student I could develop my own curriculum and get the professors to sign off on it. And then I could do that, because I realized at that point I'm not a very formal student. I get very turned off to traditional curriculum, and I kind of learn in different ways that's not always conducive to the way that the classroom environment's set. And the things that I'm interested in normally kind of be blocked off by where the curriculum's going. So this independent learning program was amazing. Like, I really jumped deep into what I was interested in, which was philosophy with pedagogy, with neuroscience, and then kind of tying it together with my thesis paper for my last year there. And so I graduated like cum laude, the top of the class, which was a shock to my family because they knew me from high school. And I was a nice kid, but I was not a good student. I was an athlete, and as an athlete, I had too many options to slack off, not learn, and still get the grades, because all the teachers knew me and they knew my family, and the coach was the vice principal, and he was damn sure that none of his players were going to fail, right? So yeah, I mean, I did like a 180 by the time I graduated my undergrad degree, where I had collections of books, and talking with friends about German philosophers and French Renaissance and everything that most kids that were probably early 20s are talking about very different subjects, right? Right.
So how does that influence your learning today? So how do you keep up? How do you cultivate your skills and stay relevant in a very fast-moving marketplace? If you don't mind, kind of
sure.
sharing some of your habits and approaches and modalities.
Thanks. I mean, to be honest, the challenging thing about living in this stage of the 21st century is the overload of information and the constant pings and noise that happens on the day-to-day. I feel like I am insulated to a larger degree being here in Thailand, because I'm not exposed to Western media to the same degree I was when I was stateside through advertisements and radio and billboards and everything. Like, so having that personal space out here gives more stillness to pursue the areas that I find more important. And I think that's a huge life hack too for people that may have not experienced that, because you don't know what it's like until you're out of it to that degree. But for me, I learn a lot. I mean, to be honest, I learn a lot when I meet people, because I'm a social guy. I love to interact. I work out of a couple different co-working spaces. The main one I'm at is called Yellow, and it's in kind of the more hipster area of Chiang Mai called Niman. And there's a lot of entrepreneurs and digital nomads that are there every day, and there's kind of this constant flow of new people coming in and people leaving. And I'm meeting all sorts of people there, and I'm learning about what they're doing, what their business does, their models, and meeting with them with coffee or for dinners, and hearing more about. I get most of the important political information secondhand through friends, right? I don't have to like go and research and read or be blasted online about it. But apart from the social side, I like to read ebooks. So I've got a collection of books that I read. I've got an app called Scribd, where I get access to a big catalog of ebooks and audiobooks, and then of course YouTube. If I'm curious about anything, YouTube is a wonderful resource to learn quickly in a very visual way, very curated way. Now, one of the areas I've noted about me personally, maybe not everyone can relate, but since the screens have become predominant in the day-to-day life of pulling out your cell phone to check apps and browsing things on your iPad, being in front of the computer, for a large portion of the day, the speed at which things happen is so fast, right? So when I graduated university, like I said, I was somewhat of a bookworm, spending a lot of time in the library, a lot of time at home just reading, and evenings, afternoons, whenever I have time, I'd have a book with me constantly. And I go through a lot of books, and I'd find my time in front of a book, I could read for a couple hours and not break train of thought. And now, I do have books, both ebooks and physical books that I read, but it's a lot harder to go even for an hour now and keep your train of thought and really engage with the book. Even there'll be times where it's like 15 minutes and I'm just like, agitated, like ready to do something different. So I think that's the aftermath of living in a very fast, technological society, where we're conditioned with beeps and pings and checking social media and hits of dopamine here. I think that's it's problematic because I know they've done studies that show the attention span of the average person is being reduced, year on year, to the point where it's like, I forget what a goldfish is, but I think we're like slightly above a goldfish, but not much less. So yeah, I think that's an area that personally I'm trying to improve, but it does take work, right?
So, what would you consider to be your superpower? This is superpower I define as when you walk into a room, something that you feel super confident that you actually give to the world, like what makes you, what makes you successful, what makes you able to put your capabilities into play. What is your superpower?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I like this question. I like to ask people this question too, because it's fun to hear how they respond. I mean, for me, my superpower, I think I have a creative side that's somewhat innovative on being able to see something that's not there, right? And of course, being in the field of product development and product design, like that's a huge advantage, because you can put people in a room and it's been hours, but they may not come to the same idea as you might have that could be a great solution to whatever problem's there. And being able to do it kind of simply and intuitively is a big advantage. So I'd say that is one. But another superpower that I hear my friends tell me more than I think of it personally is that I'm good with people, able to kind of like walk into a room and network and meet people and engage with people and build rapport fairly quickly. And I love community. Like I really do have a heart to want to meet people where they're at, hear their story, understand like what they're doing and how I might be of support or a resource or a ability to connect them to a resource or a person to help further them along. Yeah, I think that's probably the two things I would say.
Right. So almost last question. So we know that your business is around product development, and you have some products that you've been able to go to market. You mind, and I know this is your passion, you mind just kind of talking about some of your products?
Sure.
And what your interest is in the future.
Sure. Yeah, so I've done a lot of different products in the past. Being on crowdfunding was a way to flip products out like hotcakes, right? Because it's a short month-long funding period, and then that infuses capital to be able to do stuff. So I've jumped into all different types of product categories, from fashion accessories to electronic accessories to games. So as far as what really gets me excited, I love gamification. I love to look at ways that people interact and use games as a way to tie things together, and especially in a social context. So I've done a couple like social party style games. One was an improv role play game where there's 1 minute scenarios, kind of a funny scenario that happens that two people have to act out, and then there's a separate deck of cards called the quirk cards that are like personality characteristics that get mashed together into the role play. So it puts out all sorts of funny scenarios and stuff. So I've done that project for a few years, and we're selling the product on Amazon and got it into a couple schools and some like newbie improvers that are crazy about it. I've created another game that's a storytelling game. It's also kind of an educational focus, called 2 Cents, and that's basically creating funny stories off of word prompts, giving and taking advice in somewhat of a quirky, humorous, improv style game. And then I created a fitness game called Fast Fit, and that Fast Fit is basically HIIT training, high intensity interval training in a deck of cards. So it's traditionally HIIT training is done where you kind of preset your exercises and your reps, but with this, it's again gamified. So all you have to do is flip the card, flip the exercise card. It's one of 60 different full body weight exercises, and then you flip the rep card, the target card, and you have your total repetitions, or you may get a wild card. So maybe I flip one card and it's burpees, where you gotta go down and have to do a push-up and jump back up, and then I flip another card and it says 20, so I do 20 burpees, right? And that's the first set. So anyway, it mixes and mashes the HIIT training in a very creative, gamified way. So I love games, and I've got other games that have developed, and I'm always thinking about ways to kind of even mash together popular games that are in the market and put it out in a more of an innovative way. So different games in the pipeline, and I'm also getting into toys, which I guess you can, they kind of go together in one category for most stores and such. But I'll be releasing kind of an innovative consumer toy at the end of this year, and then I'm into sports and fitness. I love going to the gym and training, and always been into sports growing up. So I developed a weighted training vest. So the traditional vests that are in the market now will use like weighted plates that slide into the vest, anywhere from 10 to 50 pounds for most. So I've created the first one that uses water as the weight mechanism, right? So we've got a patent on this, both in China and in the US it's pending. And so it's really the only portable weighted vest in the market. And I think that will give us a big advantage. I know we've tested with a number of different athletes, from basketball players to Olympic track and field coaches to CrossFitters, and the list kind of continues to grow. So that product's rolling out here soon. And then I've got a passion for computer electronic accessories, especially around like kind of the Apple based products, iPhone, iPad, MacBooks. So I've got 2 different products that probably the end of this year that will roll out, still in the prototyping phase for that.
That's great. So, well, one more thing, you kind of mentioned it a bit, but just if there's any room to expand, that's fine. If not, that's fine. So what is, So what do you do for fun? What's your lifestyle like? What does it mean to be Don
Yeah,
today
yeah,
and enjoying life?
yeah. Well, life is good. First off, I mean, I'm like I said, I love the gym. There's a certain type of energy that I get when I step into a gym and I train with some of my friends, lifting, just progressive overload, like physical weights, dumbbells, barbells, and such. And I feel like there's something primal about it. I'm in my late 30s, and I'm still in great shape, probably in even better shape to a degree than I was in my late 20s. And I think that's just from persistence and endurance to stick with, something like this. And I love it. There's like an edge there. Before playing competitive sports, growing up throughout university and even after university, you have this edge I don't want to say as a male, like you want to compete, you want to kind of prove yourself, you want to be able to do something, and it feels great to challenge yourself and then meet the challenge and always be pushing. So weights are definitely that, right? Because if there's one thing that when you load up a barbell full of weight, it's intimidating. You slide under it, and you're supposed to do, even if it's 1 or 2 reps, and you're not sure if you're going to be able to do it. And I think there's like this adrenaline that will kick in and excitement. So most people will probably look at me and the other guys, and maybe people that go to the gym in general, be like, why are they doing that to themselves? Like, that's just so odd, But there's something about it that's quite fun. So I train, lift weights. I love the outdoors. So doing some hiking and kind of even just long walks in some of these nature trails, and meeting up with friends. There's a limitless number of cafes, like literally limitless cafes here in Chiang Mai, even in a small radius. So cafe hopping and going to some of these little restaurants with friends has been fun. And then, so I've got a girlfriend, we're engaged, set to have a baby next year. So there's been a lot of time, just chill time with my girlfriend. So we've been getting into different like Netflix series, and so that's been good. Like before dating her, I never really was much on watching TV much, but now it's a way that we kind of connect, and there's so much great content out there too. It's amazing. So the Netflix binge things is a real thing. And some of these writers and content creators are phenomenal. So it has to be kind of balanced.
So last question. So there's a lot of folks that are in college. I interact with a lot of colleges and higher ed and students. Can you just tell us, what would you tell a college student that's in college now, how to kind of prepare for leaving a college and having a career? How can they take advantage of their college experience right now?
Yeah, that's probably my favorite question of the interview, to be honest, because I feel it's the most pertinent, most important for people watching. I think it was Mark Twain that said, education isn't about learning things; it's about unlearning things. And when you think about that, it's pretty deep, right? Because like we go to school as we're conventionally taught to try to accumulate knowledge and see it like kind of this progression of adding things into our knowledge base. But I feel like that's a very poor definition as we look forward to the future, because the best innovators and creators in today's society are the ones that are looking for the gaps in between, which require dissembling what's there and seeing what could be there and then rebuilding, right? So it's almost like a pianist, right? As I've been told, like when you first start playing the piano, I don't play, but like you have to start in the conventional way of learning the notes and practicing. But once you get to a certain level, it's about unlearning things, right? Letting kind of your intuition and kind of muscle memory kick in, and that's when you'll truly be great. So as far as education goes, and just learning and thinking about the future, that's one thing. Like, don't look at conventional wisdom as far as like in the institutions of your BAs or your undergrad, master degrees, PhDs as being an infallible truth, because as we know, there's so many innovators that have come out and successful people, happy, successful people that have changed the way we do things by going in the opposite direction of what the system is directing us towards, right? And I think there are so many lagging traditions that are just embedded and kind of put as assumptions, like this is how we should act, this is how we should move. But the truth is, like, you can be your own, creator on that. And of course, it's a riskier road, but not a road that isn't traveled by others as well. So being able to learn through mentorship and reaching out to those key people. I think that's one other point too. Is when I was in China, I had an advantage because I was a foot taller than most people, so I kind of stood out. But in China, they kind of put foreigners to the front of the queue to a degree because they respected and they valued them being there, and kind of rare. So I was able to get into these different opportunities to do things that I never would have had access to if I was in the West, especially in Idaho. So I was like in music videos. I was an actor in like a Korean Chinese style soap opera. I was a 7-Eleven model, and played pro basketball. I won a game show speaking Chinese. So it's like all these like random things, but it was just because I was there, and I kind of came into this position like, wow, if it's there, I'm gonna actually try to open some of these doors, and I became more proactive. So even like when I got into marketing and stuff for some of my products, there would be key people that I'd see in a room, right? Maybe there was a CEO of a company that was there for a conference or whatever, and I would go over and I'd mingle and I'd interact with them. Like, I think the old me would have never done that to a degree because I didn't think it was really possible. But after living in Asia and in China and seeing some of my friends and people that I knew secondhand go from rags to riches in a very short period of time, like it changes the way you think and the way you approach things. You realize that those people that have climbed, you could say, climbed the ladder, that they're not so much different than you are actually. It's just a frame of mind that's different. And I think if you can learn that frame of mind, then there's so many amazing things that you'll be able to accomplish, along the way.
Don, thank you very much. This has been more than fantastic.
Yeah, it's my pleasure, Rod. Thanks for the interview.